سلام به برنامه بعد از ظهر ما خوش اومدین در Samuel Jordan Center for Persian Studies and Culture. I'm delighted to, I don't know why I got my languages confused. I'm Nasreen Rahimieh. I am Professor of Comparative Literature at UC Irvine, and I am delighted to host this afternoon's presentation, followed by Q&A by Dr. Mahdi Ganjavi, who has a PhD from University of Toronto. He is a literary translator and distinguished historian of education, print, and literature in the Middle East. A former postdoctoral fellow at the School of Education and Social Policy at Northwestern University, he currently teaches at the Faculty of Information at University of Toronto, a true polymath. His research focuses on intellectual freedom, the transnational history of literature, books, education, print, and translation, as well as the politics of archives and counter-archiving in the contemporary Middle East. Dr. Ganjavi's book, Education and the Cultural Cold War in the Middle East, the Franklin Book Programs in Iran, was published in 2023. It received the Middle East Librarians Association 2023 Book Award. His second monograph, which is co-authored and is titled Revolutionary Engineers, Learning, Politics, and Activism at Aryameh University of Technology, is forthcoming in 2025 by MIT Press. Ganjavi's scholarly writings, essays, and reviews have appeared in the American Archivist, International Journal of Lifelong Education, Encyclopedia Iranica, Iranian Studies, and Review of Middle East Studies. Dr. Ganjavi's translations of high modernist eco-poetry and New York School poetry into Persian have been published in several literary magazines, including Neveshta and Namumkin. His translations of Likoo, did I pronounce that right? Likoo, a syllabic poetry from Southeast Iran, have appeared in Modern Poetry in Translation and Asymptote. These translations were recently published under the title Whispers of Oasis, Likoo's Poetic Mirage, by Asemanel Books in 2024. A collaboration between an ethnographer, Mansour Ali Moradi, a bilingual poet, Dr. Ganjavi, and an Anglo-Irish literary scholar, Amin Fatemi. This multilingual volume includes 100 likus, a syllabic genre of oral poetry, in their original Rudbari, accompanied by English and Persian translations. Dr. Ganjavi will speak for about 40 minutes. He has a presentation, and following that presentation, we will proceed to comments and Q&A. Dr. Ganjavi, without further ado, let me turn it to you.
خیلی ممنونم دکتر رحیمیه از همه محبتی که داشتین. I'm very much thankful for all your kindness and very honored to be here to speak about my work and our collaborative efforts to introduce Likos and translate them for the first time into English. Just to make sure you can hear me well and you can see the slides.
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, good. Let me begin my presentation reflecting and remembering Khoda Noor Lajei, a Baluch dancer whose tragic killing during the bloody Friday of Sistan not only became a moment of profound emotional mobilization during the Mahsa movement, but also transformed him as a member of the Baluch community into a national and international symbol. His mesmerizing dance and dramatic life encapsulate the spirit of resilience and cultural expression, showcasing the richness and diversity of Baluch culture, one of the minoritized cultures in the Iranian plateau. In a sense, I believe that similar moments of awakening to the cultural richness of minoritized communities and the national and international recognition of their heritage need to happen across various humanistic disciplines. The genre of poetry I will discuss today, the indigenous poetry of Rudbar and Baluchistan, deserves global translation and celebration. This poetry serves as a literary manifestation of the region's rich heritage, its enduring struggles, and its unyielding spirit. Our translating and introduction effort, in our translation and introduction effort, we have aspired to act as a modest interpreter and transmitter of this richness, approaching it with care and a deep belief in its significance. This endeavor is not merely about preservation, but also about challenging and unsettling the canon of Iranian literature to ensure that voices from the margins are heard, valued, and given the rightful place in the broader literary and cultural discourse. Let me start with a few Likoos in their original language, followed by Persian and English translation. پرچم سر کبران تا کی به صبران پرچمی بر سر گورستان تا به کی باید تحمل کرد Another flag placed in the graveyard. How long can I suffer? کوتم رو ردت کوتر دستبندت روی ردت افتادم دست بندت افتاده بود I followed your tracks. Your bracelet was dropped on the ground. دل زهر گرما نتوک بفرمان در آن زهر داغ تابستان تعارفم نکردی که بنشینم In that hot summer noon, you did not invite me to sit down. ماهک شروگن ای گپ دروگن ماه در حال پترافشانی است نه این فاجعه را باور نمی‌کنم In a night with such luminous moon I cannot believe this calamity. I'm just listening to two more Likoos in their original to give you a sense of their formal characteristics, which I will discuss further. تا یاد اکهم مخب نابهم بیمار سالم ناپرسی حالم. Likoo is one of the most concise forms of oral poetry in the Iranian plateau. Composed in the languages of the people of Rudbar and Baluchistan in southeast Iran, Likoo are a testament to the cultural diversity and linguistic richness of the region. Baluchistan and Rudbar, akin to siblings in geographical proximity, share a profound cultural bond. Despite grappling with challenges such as drought and water scarcity, both regions are adorned with the richness of ancient traditions. The shared cultural heritage extends beyond customary practices, encompasses common legends, epics, and myth. In essence, the shared cultural, historical, and musical tapestry of Baluchistan and Rudbar reflects not only the interconnectedness of these regions, but also the resilience and continuity of a vibrant heritage that spans generations. The historical nomadic interactions between the denizens of the expansive plains of Rudbar and Jazmurian and the mountainous and desert landscapes of Baluchistan have fostered a dynamic exchange, resulting in the settlement of numerous Baluchi Rudbari clans in these territories. As noted, Likoo is one of the forms of oral poetry in both Baluchistan and Rudbar. Both Baluchi and Rudbari Likoos are syllabic and have rhyming endings, with Rudbari Likoos consisting of 5 syllables in each masra, while Baluchi Likoos consist of 10 syllables. This poetic form is quite short, but rich in its cultural connotations. Despite the divergence in syllabic structure, both variations of Likoo share a common trait in their brevity. This brevity is not a limitation, but rather a strength that demands active participation from the reader. The succinct nature of Likoo poetry requires the audience to become co-creators, actively filling in the spaces between words and syllables with their own interpretations and emotions. This interactive dynamic enhances the cultural significance of Likoo, transforming it from a mere literary form into a shared experience between the poet, reciter, and the reader, listener. Likoos are similar to haiku in the sense that both are syllabic, short, filled with images, and are manifestation of daily life as well as ethnic beliefs. However, the two differ in terms of their number and syllabic arrangements, with the haiku, which is 575, but here we have 5 for in the case of Rudbari Likoo. However, the two differ in terms of their number and syllabic arrangements, the content of their ethnic beliefs each contain, and the social and natural geography of the people who have composed them. The recitation of Likoos is commonly accompanied by musical instruments such as qeychak. You can see an image of qeychak, also known as suruz in the region, chang, ney shabani, and donali, and at other times it occurs with no musical instrument, but with the mesmerizing and alarming sound of the wind in the desert. The content of Likoos mostly consists of romantic longing, grief for the death of a youth, separation, and immigration. It explores the anguish of being distant from the motherland and delves into descriptions of the beloved. The name Likoo, it is argued, originated from the name of a bird. The Likoo as a bird, or Likoo bird, is a distinctive avian species native to the regions of Rudbar and Baluchistan. It has its own unique physical attributes, recognizable by its long feathered tails and wings, which are adorned with streaks of brown. The Likoo bird possesses a formidable curved beak. While the Likoo bird grapples with an uncertain future, precariously perched on the brink of extinction due to the harsh effects of recent droughts, its poetic counterpart, Baluchi and Rudbari Likoos, have been more fortunate in the last century. The Baluchi Likoo, despite remaining understudied for a considerable period, experienced a transformative turn when Abdurrahman Pahwal translated Baluchi Likoos to Persian back in 1974. Akhenov delved into the study of Likoos among Baluch of Turkmenistan in 1990, and later Dr. Asadullah Shuur, Afghan scholar, categorized Baluchi Likoos as one of the 8 forms of Afghanistan's oral poetry and drew parallels between Baluchi Likoo and Pashto Landi. In 2005, Mansour Momeni inside Iran published a book, Sad Likoo, 100 Likoos, which was the first compilation of 100 Baluchi Likoo along with the Persian translations. Let me read one of them, but this is in Baluchi, so just I should say I have my pronunciation would not be good enough, perfect. بلبلای مودان عاشق باغن کداهین چشمان منی دلا داغن. This is one of the Baluchi Likoos found, documented by Asadullah Shuur during his time in Radio Kabul. Rudbari Likoo, which is the subject of today's conversation, however, remained understudied until Mansour Ali Muradi's effort to record and study this tradition. As this volume is introducing Rudbari Likoos to the English-speaking world for the first time, some words on the Rudbar would be necessary. With a population of about 700,000, Rudbar has a unique cultural geographical characteristics. It is at the confluence of the literal culture of Hormuzgan in the Persian Gulf, the Persian culture of Kerman, and the Baluchi culture of Baluchistan. Immigration within the plateau combined with the relative inaccessibility has made Rudbar ethnoculturally and linguistically distinctive. The Great Rudbar includes the cities of Rudbar Junubi, Qaleganj, cities that you can see in the map here. This is the map of the places where these specific Likos in this collection were collected from. The Great Rudbar includes the cities of Rudbar Junubi, Qaleganj, Manjan, Kahnouj, Faryab, and the plains of Jiroft and Anbarabad in the south of Kerman. Most of these cities were established on the banks of Halil Rud, around which a very ancient civilization flourished. And Halil Rud was one of the most important rivers in southeast Iran. It had been the largest river in the southeast of Iran, and numerous tribes from all over Iranian plateau migrated to these areas over time. They brought with them their culture, manners, and arts, enriching the banks of the Halil Rud with a diverse tapestry of traditions. The next few images just give you a sense of the geographical conditions of the place we are talking about. An image of the sandy regions of Turi near Qaleganj, and all these images are courtesy of Mahdi Mirzai, a poet, and photography are from Rudbar, and I'm very much thankful for his generosity. Another image from a contemporary village there, Baglogiyaran, and this third image, which gives you a sense of the Oasis style and the hot springs which appear at the region, Kalporego hot spring, or Cheshme Ab Garm Kalporego. People in the Great Rudbar speak several main languages: Aram Naram, Horta, Baluchi, Barahui, and Persian. Aram Naram, which is also known as Rudbari, and I've referred to it as Rudbari a few times till now, is a language related to both the dialect of the Hormuzgan people and the Baluchi language, serving as the dominant language in the Great Rudbar region. Geographically, Aram Naram, or Rudbari, is considered the link between Persian and Baluchi languages. Its application is limited from the south, where the Baluch language is predominant, to the north, where Persian is commonly used. Rudbari's limited contact with the country's lingua franca has helped preserve its distinctive characteristics. From a genealogical perspective, Rudbari and its geographical varieties are placed in the group of Bashkardi dialects, which is a collective designation for numerous dialects spoken in southeastern Iran. This is an image of Karim Babr Bayan, a Sorna player and Likoo reciter of the region. Rudbari Likos are commonly made up of 4 words with ending rhymes. Because of its unique characteristics, Rudbari Likoo is used in a variety of poetic expressions, including mourning songs, hymns, as well as songs of happiness and epic narratives. Likoo is a folk poem, and several of the natives in the area have written at least 1 or 2 Likos during their life. Usually, no money is received for singing and playing Likos. However, a small group of veteran Qeychak or Suruz players, known locally as Pahlevans, and some Sorna players like Karim Babayan, you can see image here, who play wedding music, receive a fee. For example, Pahlavans incorporate Likos into their performances between the recitation of certain epic verses to prevent the narration from becoming tedious and monotonous. But mostly, Likos are written and recited by ordinary people without any pay. Based on the style in which Likos are recited and performed, they are known by different names in the Rudbar region, such as Dahu, Dahu Zahra, Dikan, Zahiruki, and Haskin. Likos echo the lives of people in Rudbar, the lives of those living in the oasis surrounded by the desert. They depict life in the desert with its all hardships, challenges, and failures. Likos are the poetry of short joys and continuous hardship, reflecting the brutality of life dominated by nomadic social relations. They are the voice of a lover who catches a glimpse of his beloved in the desert, the call of a camel driver in the lonely nights of the desert on a dry path, or the mourning over the death of a young person due to tribal violence. Moving from a more descriptive account to some historical and analytical contextualization of how I have approached Likos, or how I can understand the importance of them to unsettle Iranian canons of literature. I should say Likoo, as one of the oldest and most concise forms of oral poetry in the Iranian plateau, serve as a gateway to a broader tapestry of indigenous poetic traditions in Iran. Persian classical poetry enjoys a revered status on the global literary stage, renowned for its rich history, intricate rhyme schemes, and profound philosophical and mystical depth. Persian poetry has garnered widespread recognition among scholars and enthusiasts worldwide. So we can see translation of Hafiz, Saadi, Rumi, and many other poets into various languages, global languages, as well as their canonization within Iran's modern history of literature. In contrast to the well-explored realm of Persian poetry, many indigenous and minoritized poetic forms of the Iranian plateau remain relatively uncharted on the global stage. These lesser-known traditions, steeped in cultural nuances and unique expressions, await scholarly exploration and global readership to foster a more inclusive and diverse literary landscape. To just mention a few of them, and there are many forms and genres of Bumi Surud or indigenous poetry in Iran, like Amiris, which are common in Mazandaran, Tabari, Talba, Najma, Katuli, all poetry mainly in northern Iran, Haqqani, Sudkhani, Sharafshahi, Chardani, Pilali, Likoo, Sherbe, Hajiani, Fayezkhani. All of these are names of different and various forms of what we might call indigenous poetry or Bumi Surud in Iran. Pahalviyat, which are Dobaitis written in Kurdi, Bayati, poetry written in Azerbaijani, Turkish, Ashiqi, Zahiruk, and Charlangi, which are poetry, baits or verses written in languages of the people of Lorestan. Despite their profound historical roots and cultural significance, these forms of indigenous poetry have been subject to limited scholarly attention. The 19th century saw European Orientalists, including Valentin Zhukovsky, embarking on the initial exploration of these poetic traditions. Subsequently, in the early 20th century and in the aftermath of the constitutional revolution in Iran, local scholars such as Kohi Kermani, Ibrahim Shakurzadeh, Mohammad Mukri, and Sadegh Hedayat began compiling and studying these poems, marking a pivotal moment in the scholarly engagement with indigenous poetry. The exploration of Iran's indigenous poetry, however, as I mentioned, while at least baits or some forms of poetry were more were kind of recorded and documented much earlier. When it came to Likoo, it had to wait until almost 1970s to be first recorded and introduced to the written, from oral history to become written and introduced to the scholarly world. The exploration of Iran's indigenous poetry serves not only to diversify cultural expressions, but also to complicate our understanding of poetic forms, traditions, aesthetics, and the very essence of poetry itself. Iran's indigenous poetry, such as Likoo's, often crafted by anonymous poets and perpetually refined through oral traditions, play a pivotal role in fostering a communal understanding of the significance of poetry within a culture. The communal nature of indigenous poetry, manifested in its collective creation and continuous evolution, encourages a deeper engagement with the multifaceted roles that poetry plays in communities. Rather than individualistic endeavors, these poems emerge from the collective consciousness of a community. The exploration of poetry of minoritized Iranians contributes significantly to the formation of a literary understanding that is inherently multilingual and characterized by diverse modes of poetic experience and expression. As it's famous, and for instance, scholars such as Bahar has also mentioned, but more recently Zulfahari and Ahmadi, they posit that pre-Islamic Iran lacked metric poetry, asserting that the indigenous forms with their syllabic prosody are a continuation of the melodious local psalms that distinguish themselves from prose in the pre-Islamic period. These indigenous forms continued to be produced and mainly orally transmitted with various communities. Despite the resilience of these indigenous poetic traditions, the advent of the modern era, particularly the nation-state building process, ushered in a complex phase in their trajectory. Instead of being integrated into the creation of a national literature, these traditions faced marginalization and a process of indigenization. The exclusion from the construction of the national literary identity resulted in the further sidelining of these indigenous forms, stifling their potential for broader recognition and appreciation. The dominance of official language often reflects power dynamics and reinforces the cultural hegemony of a particular group, leading to the neglect of alternative linguistic expressions. The process of nation-state building includes attempts to constructing national literatures. This process has also been studied in the case of the formation of the history of literature as a genre. And what we might say, as modern indigenous Iranian governments strive to create a unified national identity, they often prioritize the establishment of a singular Persian linguistic framework, sidelining the rich diversity of regional and minority languages. Consequently, numerous poetic traditions composed in the marginalized languages find themselves excluded from achieving national status. As a result, the poetic traditions rooted in these languages face systematic barriers in gaining recognition, appreciation, and preservation, even in the national realm, as evident in the case of Likoo's, which is subject of this discussion. The Likoos presented in this translation are based on the dedicated ethnographical efforts of Mansour Ali Moradi. Ali Moradi's endeavor represents a passionate and personal commitment to preserving and showcasing the rich oral tradition of Rudbari community. His role as a cultural custodian becomes particularly significant as he embarks on a profound ethnological journey traversing the cultural landscapes of the region. Ali Moradi, who you can see as invites among the Likoo reciters in one of his trips to the region, and here invites Mansour Ali Moradi, and Feridun Jafari is playing Chang, and Rahman Jafari, who is sitting beside Feridun, is reciting Likoo. They are all from Chah-Yeshwarki village, very close to Qaleganj in Greater Rudbari. Ali Moradi's involvement in collecting and introducing Likoos started back in 1998 and continues to this date. His involvement extends beyond the confines of academic curiosity. It is rooted in a genuine connection with the people and the poetic traditions of Rudbar. His engagement with this oral tradition is marked by a hands-on approach involving personal journeys through the diverse terrains of the region. These journeys, undertaken with a keen ethnographic eye, allow Ali Muradi to immerse himself in the lived experiences of the Rudbari community, forging a direct connection with the poets, storytellers, and guardians of this vibrant cultural heritage. And another closer image of Rahman Jafari reciting the Likoo. As a bilingual Rudbari and Persian language poet, Ali Muradi serves as a bridge between the Rudbari's oral tradition and a broader Persian-speaking audience. His translations of Likoos into Persian not only made these poetic gems accessible to a wider readership, but also contributed to a broader understanding of the cultural diversity within Iran. And it's one thing which was very exciting for me as I was following all his efforts to introduce Likoo was when I started noticing that not only now people are appreciating, people in the region are appreciating Likoos even more, but also that people are starting to write Likoos in Persian. So a form introduced and translated from a minoritized language actually became a model and became and acted as an aspiration for modern and contemporary Persian poets who now, instead of trying to compose new poetry, had other alternatives rather than, for instance, haiku or other forms to come up with short and very much brevity of form and content. What began as the publication of Likoos and their Persian translation has evolved into a cultural phenomenon with a reach far beyond the confines of a book. There is a significant resurgence of the Rudbari Likoo, gaining momentum as local poets contribute to its revival, spurred by the newfound visibility it has earned. Simultaneously, this transformative journey has triggered a surge of inspiration among Persian poets who, captivated by Likoos, now infuse their work with the essence of this tradition. Most of the Likoos in the present collection are translated from Aram Naram, a language also known as Rudbari, and among the collected Likoos, 100 were selected that we found that that would be more appropriate for this translation and transmission at this point. Some Likoos were left out because they referred to the subjects, place, events, and specific regional characters, and their atmosphere was not very tangible, even for the non-Southern readers inside Iran. So we left them out of our translation. The English translations are done by Amin Fatimi and I. Amin is a multifaceted individual building skills as a translator, educator, and Irish literature scholar based in Reading. Adding a personal dimension to our collaborative efforts, both Amin and I are born in Kerman province and share a deep appreciation for the land and its people. This shared background infuses our translations with an understanding of the cultural context, enriching the poetic expressions we work to convey. Also, to further immerse myself in the essence of Likoos, I had the privilege of being hosted by Ali Muradi on a journey to Rudbar, and it was a very enriching experience, as you might guess, seeing the Likoo reciters in person and having the chance to learn from them and engage with them and discuss this tradition with them. It is, and finally, it is crucial to acknowledge that the translation within this volume, while aspiring to offer a solid understanding of Likoos, should not be viewed through a strictly scholarly lens. Rather, our combined endeavors have been geared towards conveying and introducing the rich poetic traditions of Likoos to the general reader. Our primary aim is to bridge the gap between this culturally significant tradition and a wider audience, fostering appreciation and understanding among those who may not be steeped in the academic nuances of scholarly work. In doing so, we hope to share the beauty, depth, and cultural significance of Likoo with a broader readership, transcending the boundaries of specialized scholarship. And just to finish my presentation, let me finish with Ali John from the Chalk Pichi reciting a look. Thank you so much for your time and listening to. Oh, Dr. Rainier, your voice was muted. Oh, you're still muted.
Dr. Raimier, I think you're on mute, if you don't mind unmuting yourself.
Well, that would help, yes. Thank you. Dr. Ganjavi, thank you very much for that very rich presentation and introducing us to the context, to the history that we're on it, most of us are aware of. And this is the kind of, I would say, effort in terms of expanding what we have under the terms of nationalism come to know as a very limited canon of literature. And what I really cherish and appreciate for my part is the integration of oral traditions that we have from the dominance of European traditions. We have assumed that anything that's not been written is not part of the literary tradition. And for me also, it is very significant that we have languages other than Persian as sources of creativity, literary expression, cultural expression. So I for one, am grateful for this effort. And in my own limited work in Gilaki, I find that the dominance of TV, social media, and I mean, for ages now, there's nothing new about this, is that it is actually even changing the nature of the language, the spoken language. So one has to go further afield, go out of the main centers and cities in order to be able to access a sort of more authentic, original forms of poetry. So I applaud your work, and I really think this is fascinating. There are many, many, many parts of Iran where one could do this kind of invaluable work. Thank you so much. Your interest, of course, in Likoo originates in your own knowledge, your own history of. Are you aware of others working in this area apart from the team that you worked with?
You mean under Rudbari? Because there has been more and more people from the region are becoming interested in exploring it. I can see, and people are starting to write new Likoos, but one thing which is very interesting is that while they compose it, they follow the same tradition of not assigning any authorship. So not claiming the authorship, but trying to, for it to circulate and to continue that communal role that it used to play. I've seen more people from the region both appreciating it and some other collections. Still, the most attractive collections are the ones done by Mansour, especially given that this is just part of the larger effort that he has made to document the whole culture of the region. He has done, it's if I'm not wrong, at least 7 other books on various aspects of folk literature in that part. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it to today's talk. He just recently went back from Vancouver to Root Bar, and we were very much we couldn't manage it in terms of internet access. But yeah, that's something that I can say. Also, I can see that people who are documenting the music of that region are more and more sharing those on Instagram pages, and some scholarship, for instance, works done by Fuad Tawhidi, himself a great poet. His father was a huge literary figure of the region, as well as a very important, Fuad is a very important figure in documenting and recording musical richness and diversity, going village after village, recording female and male reciters. So I can see those also happening. And during the time that I was there, I was also seeing this idea and conversations about importance of indigenous poetry, or thinking about through these terms, what role should indigenous or Bumi play in what we understand, or how we understand aesthetics, in what ways, and especially among the modernist poets, in what ways it can help them, it can inspire them for new creations, and in what ways it actually might result in some sense of indigenization, or some sense of suppressing or limiting the ways they can relate to these indigenous forms. So that was also something I saw, and was very interesting to me, to see all these nuances and all these critical manners that people are working with these genres and the debates, and even theories around
That's
them.
great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Ganjavi. I just have to say I'm very excited, and I hope more people like you will endeavor to bring to the fore the indigenous traditions, because we do certainly have pluralities of traditions and languages and literary traditions that I hope we can have more access to. So thank you very much.